just get on into it.
Borderlands 4 is actually trying to open Pandora's box and is hoping that none of you notice these things, while also promising to be the next great shooting game that will unite all the players and cause a second coming for this franchise. That's
Oh
if you
boy.
believe the hype and the trailers at least. However, beneath the surface, Borderlands 4 has some concerns in it that have still not been addressed, and it's rightfully being called out after concerns are falling seemingly on deaf ears. This then brings me to some other things I want to talk about first. The collector's edition has also been announced and features all sorts of things for you to enjoy, like a big statue, a cloth map of Kairos, cards, golden keys, even a necklace. This all sounds great, or I mean it would be, but the problem is that the collector's edition, as seen here in the bottom right, doesn't even come with the game when you buy this. Why are companies doing this? But then Gearbox came
Because
in
why
after
not?
people were confused as to why this $150 collector's edition didn't even have the game included. Gearbox would then say via a post on
Oh
Twitter, and
god.
god damn it, Gearbox with that profile picture anyway, they said, the Echo 4 bundle was mislabeled as a Borderlands 4 collector's edition. This has been corrected on the website. So
Oh,
it's not a collector's edition, but it is because it's a bunch of things tied to a game that people want that they
yeah.
can collect to showcase how much they love that.
I'm sorry, but when you release something like that and you mislabel it, that is a huge fuck up. And anybody that made that choice to go ahead and publish that on the website should be penalized, because that is a huge oversight, especially something like that, and people looking for, digital deluxe box sets or whatever. They're going to want to look for that kind of stuff. So to me personally, that's a pretty big fuck up. But yeah, no, especially with a big company like that, you shouldn't be able to, you shouldn't let those kind of things like slip through. Personal opinion.
That franchise by buying it. Yeah, it's a collector's edition. This is like a company firing someone, and then the employee going, "How can you fire me?" And the company goes, "No, you misunderstand. We're just promoting you to customer is all." So I wish that was the end of all the, WTFs. However,
True.
Borderlands 4 keeps lying.
I laugh so much at that just because of the fact that I've wanted to say that to people before. As somebody that, works in management, and it's pretty funny. It's like an inside joke with management. So it's funny to hear them say that.
Regardless, and it's kind of crazy to see. So this is why I wanted to make the video in the first place. So we all know people don't like it when games have stuff like de novo or DRM. And in case you're unaware of what that even is, de novo is a software that game companies put on their games so that their games cannot be pirated, because it tracks whether the game
Pirated. Yeah, no. I mean, most companies, they end up removing that stuff like a year after, so that way they can get an actual judge of like what the sales are going to be. Because usually within a year, they've pretty much made their sales as far as like, peaks and valleys. And after that 1 year is up, I mean, people will pirate it once they get that removed. I mean, it's just a given. I'm not going to say how I know that, but it's okay. We all know it.
is bought for or stolen, and then they can do things like lock that player's account down for, sailing the high seas. But players then noticed on Borderlands 4's Steam page, as seen here, that the game will not only have de novo, but it will also have something called symbiote. Yeah, Borderlands 4 is going to have some kind of venom thing showing up in your software. So what the hell is
I imagine it's probably going to be some kind of anti-cheat software, because they're going to try and push this live service model pretty hard with this game in particular. And so, yeah, no, I fully expect that to happen. And people are not going to be like that, because usually anti-cheat software is kernel level, just straight up garbage crap on your computer. So, yeah, I imagine they're going to get a lot of hate for that.
going on? So I had to look into this because, like you, I was confused who and what even is symbiote. I had to go look around. I even asked Grok because information available on Symbiote was very, very light no matter where I looked.
I
What
imagine
I
so.
could find
Yeah.
was that Symbiote is apparently a lesser known proprietary version of Denuvo that has likely been developed in-house by Gearbox and 2K, which owns Gearbox. And while, of course, Gearbox
Yep.
is being coy about this, based on what I've read about Symbiote, is that it's an anti-piracy software that actually works, get this, on the kernel level of your computer.
I called it kernel level anti-cheat. There you go. See? Oh, you've seen one, you've seen them all. I don't know why these companies seem to want to be so hard pressed to keep people from. I mean, I get the piracy thing, but as far as like, making mods and stuff like that, that's what this is going to hinder. This is going to hinder people from like modding the crap out of this game. And it's going to alienate a lot of people, as I know a lot of people like making mods for games like this just for fun. So, I mean, it is what it is, but meh.
Computer system. So, not everyone's going to understand what I just said, so let me explain. The kernel of an operating system within a computer is the central core of your computer. It's like the beating heart, soul, and mind, if you will, of every single computer that is out there. All your hardware and software, it works in tandem with this. When you first turn on your computer, that kernel is the first thing that fires up. And when you turn it off, it's the last thing to shut off, making sure
Yep.
that everything else goes first. So just think of the kernel like the heart of the operating system, and you pretty much understand. Anyway, so
Yeah,
this
for the most-
symbiote thing that
for the
2K
most part,
and
yeah.
Gearbox have developed will, if you buy the game on Steam anyways, it will latch on to the very heart of your computer's entire infrastructure when you buy and install Borderlands 4. The problem here is twofold. One is that Denuvo, or DRM, can cause all sorts of problems for your computer when you play games that have this anti-piracy software installed, obviously. Things like
Yeah.
your frames per second dropping, it can cause really bad lag, and in extreme cases,
It is 100% going to cause performance issues. I have yet to see a game with Denuvo, whatever the fuck it is, not cause performance issues because it is running in the background. It is using up more resources. It's using up more of your CPU/GPU, whatever, or RAM, whatever you want to call it. And it's going to use more resources. So it's going to cause performance issues. Why these companies can't find a different way is beyond me, because most of them have gotten so laxed or comfortable with certain technologies or whatever that they don't want to find a different way that's not going to hinder the performance, because that would require more work and more money to pump into something like that, and they're just not going to do it. So just continue to use the same thing, and there will be performance issues for about a year until the Denuvo has run its course, and then they will remove it, opening the game up for piracy. But at the same time, your performance is going to get better on the game. This is a never-ending cycle with every single game that does this. And it will continue to be the same cycle until one of these companies or even an indie company develops something that is less intrusive. Or unless these games just go to complete client side, which is definitely not what people want, because then you can't mod it, because if everything's client side, that eliminates mods. And so, but I think another part of the issue is going to be that since this is going to be more of like a cross-play or a cross-platform kind of game, that they're also wanting to eliminate that from the game, as far as like PC players being able to mod the shit out of a game and then, do stuff to like console players, or introduce things to console players that could potentially ruin their game, or, crash their game, whatever. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to it, I feel, but I think the majority of the issues just stems from it does more harm than good, I personally feel. So,
can even shorten the lifespan of the entire computer itself, like the SSD, for example, or solid state drive. So the thing that your data is saved on in your computer, DRM kind of makes the...
Okay, I have one critique so far, and it's not necessarily with the video, it's with the constant dumbing down of like terms for like SSD or kernel level. Most people that watch stuff like this for like video games and whatnot, for the most part, most people know what these kind of things are. I personally think the only people that's not going to know what it is are, like, teenagers or kids or whatever that don't really look into this kind of stuff. But for the most part, I think majority of people already know what kernel level anti-cheat or what SSD stands for. I can't find the right words for it, but it does feel like, I don't know, if I feel like it's kind of like an attack on people's, like, the general people's intelligence. So I don't know. That's my only real critique, is just the constant dumbing down of things. But that's a personal thing.
The integrity of that thing worse, and also lasts shorter because of what it requires and does to your computer. So, this is why so many people are vocally against DRM or de novo and downright refuse to buy games on PC, especially if those games implement those softwares onto your computer. So, with Symbiote, which is again this.
There is a lot of people that I do know that, and it's widely known that a lot of people will refrain from buying a game or playing a game with de novo or some kind of like kernel level anti-cheat. And they will intentionally wait for the game to remove it before they buy the game. And I think that is another thing that's going to hinder some of their sales, is allowing that kind of stuff on the game. But again, that's speculation / personal opinion. That's just from what I've personally seen. But I also know a large majority of people are just going to buy it no matter what, just because it has the Borderlands name slapped on it and they're fanboys. So you'll always have those.
New form of DRM, assumingly designed by Gearbox themselves. This opens up a new path to Pandora's box again that we really don't know the full extent of until this comes out for sure and players experience it firsthand.
Yep.
But Symbiote is theorized, based on what I've read in research, that it could not only impact your system stability, but also cause problems with other software on your computer as well. Of course, it also raises major privacy and security concerns with deeper system monitoring that you might not even be aware of. So I already know some people will say, so what's the big deal? How is DRM or this Symbiote even bad? Well, a lot of reasons actually. The argument that players have against DRM is that it's unethical and actually only harms the paying customer in the end. It's alluded to say, you go buy a toaster or like a fridge, but in order for you to have that toaster or fridge in your home, some guy needs to show up to install a security camera in every single room of your house to watch you. Otherwise, you can't use that toaster or your fridge or anything else. That would obviously...
Again, video game industry does a lot of things that you would not see in any, like, majority of other, like, industries or product lines. Like, microtransactions for like basic quality of life features. You wouldn't see that in well, except unless you're BMW and then you're trying to sell a monthly subscription for your seat warmers, but that's a different story. But yeah, no, you wouldn't, like, games that just release half-assed and then slowly fix it over time. You wouldn't go to a dealership and buy a car that has, that's missing a tire and be like, oh, well, eventually we'll build a tire. We'll ship it to you. No, you don't see crap like this. It is only in the games industry that they do this. And he made a good point, with the refrigerator thing, and yeah, no, the game industry has gotten away with a lot of things over the past because there's no regulation that can prevent them from doing stuff like this. And I think a lot of it just stems from I don't really want to call it idiocy, but I think it's more like lack of understanding from current, lawmakers and whatnot. And it's not really a dig at them. It's just that, the general age group for lawmakers or politicians or whatever is much older. And so they don't really keep up with this kind of stuff as much, or video games just not anywhere close to being on their radar. So I still think it's going to be a few, like at least another 10 more years before you start seeing any type of like regulations or laws that are put into place that's going to stop these companies from doing stuff like this. So until then, you're just going to have to keep shoveling that shit right into your mouth because there's nothing you can do about it. People try to be loud and obnoxious on the internet and it doesn't do a damn thing because there's companies are still making money. And as long as they're still making money, they're going to continue to do it until the law says otherwise. Again, that's my personal take on it.
Obviously be a major security risk, not to mention it would be really freaky and weird not knowing that someone is literally watching everything you do 24/7. And in actuality, while you may think DRM might reduce piracy, it actually does the exact opposite. It's kind of
Technically, there's already somebody watching you all the time. Those aren't pigeons. Those are cameras. But yeah, no, I think that the DRM stuff, it does not deter piracy at all. People constantly find cracks in these games and they will pirate it no matter what. You see it all the time about, leaks or cracks being found and put online. So these games are going to get pirated no matter what you do. Unless it is a live service game and everything is client side, you're not going to stop piracy. And majority of piracy is done through lack of being able to afford a game or not being able to buy the game in a certain region. And I think if you really want to crack down on piracy, you drop the price of these games. I mean, again, my personal opinion.
have been a hot topic for a long time now, since even GameDeveloper.com had articles all the way back in 2013, as you can see here, discussing why DRM will never actually stop piracy, but in fact it will only make it far, far worse, which it actually has. As seen here in this article from Muso.com, which reads, regardless of the truth about performance, software bloat, and connectivity issues.
It's the same concept of, you have like a gated community and like a neighborhood or whatever. And, even though you don't have a lot of theft in your neighborhood and you decide to put up a giant gate around your, subdivision or whatever, that's not going to keep people out. It's only going to make you more of a target because you're putting up that extra fence and you're putting up an extra layer and you're just exposing yourself by saying, hey, there's something here we want to protect. So you're basically just putting up a giant flag for other people to come invade your neighborhood or whatever. It's the same basic concept. Like, the harder you fight back against it, the more other people are going to fight against you.
The strength of feeling in the gaming community is huge. DRM is accused of being anti-consumer and are perceived as being to the detriment of player experience. For game studios, it's a very quick way to alienate your target market. They also state, as seen here, that DRM increases the file size required by a game and in some scenarios has been accused of reducing gameplay frame rate and limiting performance. Also that DRM...
Again, the performance issue that these DRMs or these anti-cheat softwares give or cause, it's another reason why a lot of people refuse to buy a game at launch. A lot of people will wait for the DRM stuff to be removed before they buy a game because of the performance issues. That's why you see a lot of games, like it's even right now, like a lot of games that came out last year that had like a lot of performance issues, and now all of a sudden their DRM is being, either cut short or removed, and you see a lot of performance issues kind of going away. It's the same story every single game.
Has to regularly verify legal ownership of the content, which obviously requires online connectivity. In such cases, people can't even play their games unless they're connected to the internet 24/7. So it's a failsafe in theory against piracy, but doesn't fully work as intended. Even game studios are losing hope in its implementation, like Capcom, for example, where they've had their games hacked regardless of DRM being implemented in the first place. As Muso says here, game studios and distributors need to protect their content online and take a stand against piracy, but the chosen strategy should not undermine the core product or hijack the conversation around a release. Gaming creates huge and passionate fan bases which need to be nurtured. Fans should not be left feeling as though their gameplay is being hindered, and it's exactly that. It's not a one-fix-all solution. And it's also created new problems that wouldn't have existed if DRM was never made a thing in the first place. As Fortinet says here in their article, while it does
Yep.
enable some level of protection, such as assets and so on, from various creatives, like game makers or maybe even authors, it's supposed to, in theory, avoid any legal problems that could arise from it. But regardless, it's hurting the wrong people in the long run. Because DRM doesn't affect the pirates of these content things, because all it really takes is one person who's skilled enough to crack it, and then the open seas of piracy are now open to all, and the DRM on that
Yep.
game means absolutely nothing to them anymore. So in turn, the DRM then only affects you who actually buys the game legitimately. But since a lot of people, out of principle,
I also know, I know that a lot of piracy sites, or a lot of these websites that try their best to crack into these games and try to find a workaround so they can pirate the game and post it up. A lot of these companies see this DRM as like a bounty checklist, and they see it as, okay, I've got a new challenge. And so you're really not deterring anybody with this DRM nonsense. Like, let's be honest. Like, they just see it as a new challenge.
alone don't buy games with DRM because of that very reason, it can also lead to lower sales for games that do have it. Although this implementation of DRM might sound good, in Borderlands 4's case, all it will actually do is just harm the players who buy the game on Steam specifically, because now they aren't just having their computer's internal systems compromised, but now they will have this questionably named symbiote DRM software
Yeah.
that allegedly ties itself to the very kernel of your computer's operating system as well. So now you're getting double screwed for buying Borderlands.
I have a feeling this symbiote software that they're making, guarantee you right now, it's going to be flawed as shit, especially if it's being made in-house by Gearbox. I do not foresee them like doing any real testing with it. They might do the bare minimum to make sure it's running at like the minimum. But yeah, no, I don't think they're going to do any real testing with it, and they are going to launch it. People are going to gripe about it. It's going to cause performance issues, and there will be a lot of downvotes, or not really downvotes, but like negative reviews in Steam because of it, and it will suffer. And it will take them about another year before they regain any of that good faith from their players. And so far, from what I've seen of the game, it's just Borderlands 3 with a new UI slapped on it. I mean, let's be honest. So, I mean, a lot of people really aren't that impressed so far anyways, except for your fanboys. They'll continue to suck that dick as much as possible.
Borderlands 4 on Steam. Of course, DRM can also be used to mask poor sales from executives. They could claim, oh, the game didn't sell well because those damn pirates pirated our game. But the reality is that they only pirated it because you implemented DRM and then some in the first place. Even mobile games use their own versions of DRM to control how their games are accessed by implementing things like daily server side checks and licensing verifications. So while yes, it is an industry-wise used tactic, it's not a popular one, obviously. Gearbox has clearly implemented this now double DRM whammy on people, hoping that they wouldn't notice it amidst, that good PR with the $70 price point that they confirmed. And while that price is nice, it just now means that Steam players specifically will be paying another way. And sadly, like I said, the majority of PC players who don't know these things inside and out are going to be the biggest victims of things like this. And the video that I made before this one was about Activision Blizzard, and by extension Microsoft and Nintendo, forcing player behaviors to accept a you'll owe nothing and be happy future when it comes to how you enjoy the content that you pay for. And what Gearbox has done here now is similarly being done to see if players will accept things like not one, but two different forms of anti-piracy invasion softwares on their computers when they buy these games.
I personally think that two different DRM forms of software for one game is just ludicrous. Like, there is really no need for it if you're already running de novo. But I honestly don't think this symbiote is going to be like a de novo kind of thing. I think it's going to be more of your live service anti-cheat kind of software. That would be my guess going forward. So because I don't really see the point in having two de novo like things running at the same time. But if it really is kernel level anti-cheat, oh my god, people already are trying to fight back against this kind of crap, and it's going to cause them more problems in the long run. But yeah, I personally don't think it's two different forms of de novo. I think it's de novo mixed with some kind of like anti-cheat, like live service anti-cheat. But I agree. I think it's overkill to have two of these in the same game, especially for a game that can be played like split screen co-op or, whatever, like couch co-op kind of game. For a game that's not strictly just live service, this is just ridiculous. Like, you're trying way too hard.
And Symbiote, as it seems anyway, is going to be like a super throttled version of DRM. And if those claims are true that it does latch itself to the kernel of your computer, at that point, Gearbox will have any and all info they want on you when you play Borderlands 4.
They already
this
do.
Symbiote software, combined with how Gearbox
You
updated
accept the
user
EULA.
agreements on their other Borderlands games, which also led to a mass review bombing as players didn't feel comfortable with the new terms of service as seen here. It seems like to me anyway that what Gearbox and 2K are doing are trying to push this mentality that they will only let you play their games if you allow them to essentially have all the user data they could possibly want from you down to your most private levels. It would be,
and a lot of that's just going to stem from because there's no real legislation as far as what these game companies can and can't do as far as that goes. And so they're going to keep trying to push it, and they're going to try and push it as much as they possibly can. And they're going to try and see exactly what they can get away with before the law catches up with them. And yeah, I mean, that's just the way it's going to go, because there's no real regulation for a lot of things with games. So yeah, they're going to try and push every single button they can.
be like going to a car dealership and they're like, yeah, we'll sell you a car, but only if you give us access to all the photos and videos on your phone. We also want to see your bank account whenever we want. And
again, like I said earlier, games industry is one of the only industries or product lines that does a lot of this stuff. You would not see this in a lot of other industries or, products or whatever.
oh yeah, no more private conversations for you either. And anytime you FaceTime someone, just know we're going to be watching what you do too. But don't worry, enjoy that car you just bought. This is what Borderlands 4 is going to do to your PC pretty much, if this is to be believed. They're going to own copies of all of your data, from your personal info down to having access to your entire computer system operations. So while sure, you get the brand, new shiny Borderlands game, oh wow, look at the shooting, wow, it looks so great, and you get to run around and collect guns and more, underneath that all, Gearbox and 2K, they're pretty much going to have access to everything you are in exchange for that game. And then, if this new symbiote software becomes, widely accepted, where does the line of too much invasion of privacy begin and end then? But that's what I got for you there. And next, I want to talk about some of the more positive aspects of the game before I close out this video. But you know all the
If
story
there's
by now,
positives,
right? Randy Pitchford says only real fans can buy the game. The internet imploded, and now we got confirmation on how expensive this game will really be. As Randy Pitchford himself
70.
confirms here, Borderlands 4 will be $70, not $80 at launch like most other games from Nintendo or even Microsoft. No doubt this was decided last minute to sway the discussion towards, positivity, especially with that symbiote stuff, my god. But anyway, Randy says, you showed them, he means the investors and whatnot, and now we must show them that this price point will be rewarded in kind. Personally, I do think, regardless at this point, that Borderlands 4 will
I personally think it was just to kind of save face for a minute, just for a little bit anyways. And because there was a lot of pushback with the whole $80 price tag, and especially with like Outer Worlds being $80, I personally don't think any game should be $80. That's my personal opinion, because a lot of people that play games to escape reality and or to escape their day-to-day life. And a lot of those people just have jobs or whatever. And $80 is a huge investment for your average person. and your average person is a large chunk of your clientele. And so to charge $80 to your average clientele is just beyond ridiculous. Now, I also get why they're doing it, because a lot of these companies are so overinflated that they have so many people working for this company that they don't have a choice but to raise the price on these games, because how else are they going to pay for all 2,000 of their employees? But at the same time, it's also a matter of them trying to push more revenue streams or increase their profit margins, whatever. But it's really not necessary. There's plenty of indie and AA titles that prove that you don't need to sell your game for $70, $80 for it to be successful. There's been a lot more successful games than half of these AAA titles in the last few years that don't charge anywhere near $70, $80. Most of the more popular ones have only been charging like $20 to $50. So, I mean, personally, I think it's a nice little kick to the balls to a lot of these AAA devs.
Probably, sell well. I don't really see the game flopping. Sure, Borderlands may not have the same staying power it once had, especially after 3's god-awful story and that movie that came and went.
I think the last couple Borderlands games have done a lot of damage to their IP as far as they were flops. Like, a lot of people did not like Borderlands 3. A lot of people did not like Wonderlands. And so when you have two really bad games in a row, you're going to be very hard pressed to get people on board with another one. It's been proven with other IPs in the past that when you release a game and it's terrible or very, poorly received, that generally the next game after isn't very well received and does not sell as much. So I think they're hyping this up the Gearbox, is trying to hype this up more than what they're expecting too much out of this. And I don't think it's going to be all that great of a seller. I don't think it's going to see that many good sales, personally. They've done too much damage with the last two games. I don't foresee it selling that great. So, but that's my personal opinion.
But it does seem like, as a video game anyways, that Gearbox is learning from their mistakes and truly do want to give fans the game they deserve, piracy and anti-software aside, I guess. But there's a lot more than just the price, however. Of course, some places decided to, clap back, like Kotaku here with their article, saying that all this drama was for nothing, which, no, Kotaku, it wasn't for nothing. Actually, the pushback was rightfully aimed at Gearbox and Randy for being morons and people, in fact.
Anybody that takes Kotaku seriously anymore, but anybody that takes them seriously, you need to climb out of the hole you've been living in and realize that Kotaku is just slop journalism. There's a reason why why their website has gone down the shitter. Nobody really takes them seriously. They're horrible.
Do not want new games to cost this new price point. And the fact the game had to make a big splash to confirm its $70 proves that the backlash was warranted and actually worked. But of course, this is Kotaku we're talking about, which is, ran by morons. I'm still surprised that Kotaku even exists still. But I guess cockroaches always find a way to survive no matter what. That being said, beyond that $70 price point, there's other stuff that's kind of WTF to talk about surrounding the game. For starters, from GameSpot, Borderlands 4 post-launch plans include new Vault Hunters, but they won't be free.
There you go.
Read version.
There is your typical Gearbox. You release a base game, make a digital deluxe to where you can get all this stuff for $120, or you can pay for it over time, and they're going to release a ton of stuff over time. Gearbox is known to release a character for $10 or a new map or a new boss or whatever. They always pump out like at least 100 DLCs for their mainline Borderlands games, and they're going to charge out the ass for each one of them. And so when all's said and done, you're going to be, once all their DLCs and everything are released, you're probably going to be looking at about $300 worth just to be able to play the game in its entirety. It's shit. Like, no, why?
These new Vault Hunters will be added to Borderlands 4 via their...
I have no problem buying, going back 15 years ago or so, when games would release and there would be like a big DLC pack. So like expansion packs or whatever. So like instead of like buying like one mission here, one character here, one boss here, and that being like $40 across, you know, several smaller, you know, DLCs, just give me the one $40 like expansion or DLC pack or whatever, but take your time making it and just release everything in a big chunk instead of trying to spread it out across smaller, you know, purchases. I guarantee you right now, more people would be inclined to spend money on, you know, large scale DLCs or expansion pack type purchases. Guarantee it.
They're more expensive editions. For example, the Super Deluxe Edition, which costs about $130 American, will have these new Vault Hunters included with that price when you buy it. Beyond this, Gearbox is also going to add a new region to Kairos, which is the planet that the game takes place on, in case you didn't know. And this new region and such will, as seen here, add new storylines, side missions, and tighter focused content. So I assume gameplay that will be more linear, which is fine by me.
And it will also have a price tag attached to it.
Here, we'll have new areas, missions, loot, vehicles, and more tied to each of them as well. Before people freak out, this is nothing really new. Borderlands has routinely paywalled new Vault Hunters and areas behind DLCs in the past. Think the original Mad Moxie DLC, characters like Krieg, Gage, and more, they were all DLC as well. So this is pretty standard practices for Gearbox, although currently I don't know the price points of these bounty packs. That being said, Randy Pitchford has also confirmed, as seen here from Insider Gaming, that he believes that Borderlands 4 will earn its value once players see exactly how much is on offer here, and honestly, I do believe him. The game does look good, you know, besides the whole symbiote thing. But Randy had some words to say
I am
about
not
fans
sold
being
on it
worried
yet,
about
to be
Borderlands
honest.
4 getting too greedy and screwing them over. Here's what he said. I think we see the angst about it most with the games people care about the most. The more someone cares about a game, the more the friction of that pricing is.
I think that with Borderlands, like, they've nailed the art style. Like, their art style is very good. I give them that. Like, it is a very unique and stylized look. I think that instead of trying to sell a game on visuals anymore, they need to sell it on game mechanics or gameplay or new iterations on gameplay, and you know, evolve from that. And they haven't really done that. Like, it's basically been the same exact game since Borderlands 2, in my opinion. Like, they haven't really done much to evolve since then. And I think that's part of their biggest problem.
Is in the way. But look, it's all going to be fine. It's all going to work out. Maybe there are some people where that $10 difference is super, super meaningful. But from a video game hobbyist perspective, what does it really mean, the $10 difference? It means that you can't buy some $10 indie game, or that there was a $30 game that now you can only buy a $20 game. Like, how tight is it? We're talking about people that own consoles and own game-ready PCs here. We're not talking about homeless people. I'm not trying to be light about anything. The world's the world, man. We're all in it, doing the best we can. Everybody's just struggling, doing the best they can. He keeps going. The expectation should be that it's a premium game, it has a premium price, and that it launches as a full-featured, incredible value product that we might add more things to if you want to spend more time with it. It's not a live service conceit. It's not a microtransactions-based business model. Borderlands 4
really
is absolutely committing to the bit. It is a premium game. Look, I do.
So when you come out and you say, poor people don't play games. No, but there are people with a budget, and not everybody can afford, you know, to drop 70, 80, almost $100 on a whim. Like, the average person can't really do that realistically. And so when you set this expectation, like, oh, well, you know, we're not marketing it to poor people, we're marketing to people with money. We want money. That sets a bad precedence going forward. And while it might not be microtransactions specifically, when you release smaller scale, like DLCs, like character packs or mission packs or whatever, that is essentially a microtransaction. I'm sorry, but it is. There are microtransactions out there that are $20, $30. All you got to do is look at your gacha games and League of Legends to know that. So that's very disingenuous to say something like that. So I don't quite agree with this.
I do believe that Borderlands 4 will definitely be worth the asking price, or at least hopefully anyway. I will be reviewing the game when it launches, and I do think that the biggest green flag for me for this game is the promise that its humor won't be R to the tarded like it was in the past. I mean, Borderlands 3 was
It's
like the
so
event
bad.
horizon of bad jokes. That game was just terrified to just let you play without some weirdo screaming in your ear every 5 seconds trying to drop another horrible.
Borderlands 3, even Borderlands 2 had some like really cringy millennial humor, but 3 and Wonderland was just so goddamn bad. Like it just screamed millennial, just slop humor. I mean, oh my God, I could not stand it.
Joke to you. Actually, Borderlands 3's story and characters were so annoying, if I wasn't doing the main missions, I frankly just muted the game and listened to a podcast or music instead. Not only because the side missions story-wise were boring, which they were, but I just grew tired of some guy yelling all the time when I just wanted to play the game. So
True.
Borderlands 4 looks to tone this down, and honestly, thank God for that. It doesn't mean it can't still be funny, but I do think we can all agree that humor is best when it's used sparingly and smart. Not 100% 24/7 in your face all the time like Borderlands 3 tried and failed miserably at.
Yeah.
That being said, it's not all Gearbox is working to fix. As seen here from Games Radar, they want to fix
It's like the old adage that less is more, and when you constantly turn every interaction into a joke, eventually people are just going to get fatigued with it, and it's no longer going to be about humor, it's just going to be an annoyance. Plain and simple.
Every problem that Borderlands 3 has had with this sequel. And this is all great and dandy, I'm not gonna lie, they're bringing value to the game, they want to fix the problems and not beat you over the head with stupid jokes 24/7. And this game is probably going to be great to play, and nothing wrong could be happening at all with it right. Well, if you take what I said about Symbiote and more, it just makes things seem more concerning than really anything else. But I guess before I end this video, let me ask you guys, how far is too far for you? Is DRM already enough for you to say no to everything? What about this whole symbiote thing? And how about the whole EULA, changes that are still a thing on every Gearbox game as well? Is the invasion of privacy getting too much for you, or are you okay with it to stop piracy, I guess? Or are you just so hyped for this game that none of this really matters and you're just going to buy it anyways? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay. It was a good video. I didn't know about the symbiote thing, so that one was kind of a surprise to me. Yeah, no. I personally think that 2 forms of DRM, so you've already got de novo being added in, which is already a lot. It's on a lot of people's, like, I guess you call it shit list. But yeah, no. Then to add the symbiote, and I don't think it's going to be another de novo thing, like, tacked on. I think it'll be more of like akin to like a live service anti-cheat kind of thing. That would be my guess. But since it's being made in-house by Gearbox, I have a bad feeling that it's going to cause a lot of problems with performance and whatnot, and it's going to cause a lot of sales to dip really, really bad. So yeah, no, that's my personal take on that. And as far as the rest of this around this game, there's not enough excitement around it. There's just been one thing after another that kind of like deters people. And it just goes to show that there is more of the past discrepancies with Borderlands 3 and Wonderlands. That just goes to show that they're really not learning any of their lessons. They're just going to continue to do the same crap and hope that people are going to be okay with it, or that they just kind of, bow down to it, or get beaten down enough that they're just like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll do it. And I don't think you're going to get that. And I really don't think it's going to sell as well as what they think it's going to. Dropping the price down to 70 from 80, I don't think that's going to do you a lot of favors. I think that with everything else that's, kind of coming out about this game, it's not helping your case at all. And I don't think it's going to be enough to alleviate the damage, to be fair. But yeah, this is a good video. So